and welcome to Model Kit Stuff and a first impressions video today of the Mary Rose as she was in 1545. So this is a 180 scale wooden ship kit made by Caldercraft in the UK and is part of their heritage range. So if you've not come across a Caldercraft kit before, then you are in for a treat. They do an awful lot of research to make sure that they get things right, and in this instance they worked very closely with the Mary Rose Museum to make sure that they got everything pretty much spot on. So as you can see, this is what you're expecting to come out with when you've completed your build. So yeah, obviously the Mary Rose, famous for turning over and sinking in battle. Some 30 years after she'd originally been built. Most likely she sank because she had her lower gun ports open, and whilst turning, water flooded in and that overturned a tragedy indeed. This kit will cost you currently in the UK around about the £300 mark. So it's quite an investment, but actually you need a lot of time to build it. So in terms of pound per hour, this is much cheaper than any plastic kit you're going to ever buy, I can assure you. So the box is a bit battered because I've had it for a while, but and it's a bit big to put it on my desk and use my camera stand, so apologies for a bit of the wobble. But what you get on the outside is a brief description. So let's just have a look at that. So as she was in 1545, 180 scale, length is 735 millimeters, height 540, width 250. Walnut CNC cut parts, double plank on frame hull, black and natural hemp for the rigging, so that's running rigging and standard rigging, and full-size plans and comprehensive instruction book. For me, the instructions by Caldercraft are usually some of the best, but I haven't looked at these in detail, so let's dive in the box and see what we get. Is a lot. 373 grams this box weighs. It's really heavy and it's packed to the gills, so packed that I can't actually get the lid back on it. So let's start off with the paperwork. First sheet of paper out of the box is a registration form. And what Caldercraft do is they allow you to register the kit. The kit has its own serial number, and Caldercraft will know exactly when that kit was released. And what they will do, free of charge, is send you any updated kit parts should that happen. So, for example, on the Victory, they did some updates on the transom and stern galleries and updated the photo etch and stuff, and then that got sent out to everyone who'd registered. So brilliant. I don't know anyone else who does this, but this is what they do. Obviously when you buy into these kits, they're quite a big investment, so it's nice that they do that. I mean, if you've built the kit, what you're going to do depends on what they send you as an update, but yeah, it's a very nice touch. So the next thing we have is effectively the instruction manual, and it's A4 in colour, at least on the front, as you can see, and it's a bound, quite a meaty little document there. And on the front we've got this lovely picture of the completed model. Now they build this up in its natural wood all the way through, which looks lovely, but in real life Tudor warships were quite colourful. From this sort of the gun port level upwards were quite often quite well decorated. So a little bit of research and you can add some real colour to this if you wish. So it says here at the top, history, instructions, part list and CNC identification manual. And then at the bottom you've got contact details should you need to. So even though the company is called Caldercraft, the website that they trade from is called Jotika Limited, And if you go on there, you can often see close-up photographs of the models and prototype test shots, and it gives you a little bit of information, and you can buy direct from that website, which might save you some money over buying it through a shop. Okay, so serial number there again, so that you're sure, and then it gives you a history of the ship. The ascension of Henry VIII and so on, and one of the first things he did was start building his navy. I think when King Henry came to power, he had 6 ships in his navy, and he very quickly got that up to 24. Anyway, it gives you the history, the building, and that carries on. We've got what, 3. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 pages, 14 pages of history on the Mary Rose, so that's pretty in-depth, including references and bibliography. So it's like a dissertation on the Mary Rose. And then the building notes start actually on page 17. So I'm going to read to you how the building notes start off. The Mary Rose kit has been designed with the full cooperation of the Mary Rose Trust, making the kit the only model based on the most up-to-date research and information. This kit is, therefore, the most accurate of its type on a Tudor warship. The kit has been designed with the intermediate modeler in mind and is ideal as a second or third model in plank-on-frame building. Estimated build time is approximately 3 months of evening work. So there you have it. It gives you some recommendations like leaving not detaching the parts till you need them. Then it has a recommended tool list. Then it has a paint and adhesive list. And then we start with the first steps, hull construction. So remove the keel from the sheet along with the plank termination pattern, and it gives you the numbers and so on and so forth. And that is how Caldercraft approach their instructions. They are step by step, they're clear, and they're divided into sections. So the hull construction, building the keel and the frames. Then you're on first planking, and it takes you through that. It references, as it goes through there, the sheets and the drawings needed. So it says here, using the plans on sheet 1, as shown on the supplementary drawing sheet, using the drawings on plan sheet 3. So it's referencing the plans, which we'll show you in a minute, all the way through this. Once you've completed the first planking, you're straight onto the second planking. Then you're on outer hull detail, so that'll be the rubbing strips under the hull, the wales down the side. Then you're on inner bulwarks and deck detail, so that will be a layer of planking on the inside of the bulwarks, and then planking the decks and things like gratings and that sort of stuff. And then by page 22 you're already onto masts and yards. Then straight into the rigging. So masts and yards, the instructions look quite small, wait till you see the plans. Then we're straight onto rigging, and that completes your build. So the actual build is what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5.5 pages, shorter than the history, certainly. Okay, so after the build notes, we have the parts list. So a brass etched sheet there, which has things like the, we'll have a look at them in a minute, but those are the bits for the rudder, for fixing the rudder into position, and I would imagine those would be the hinges for the gun ports, so on and so forth. And then you've got the wood, so it says here 8mm ply CNC cut sheet. Then we've got a walnut CNC cut sheet, 1.5mm. A lot of the fittings in walnut, so you know, under a bit of varnish, these will look absolutely beautiful. Much of the Mary Rose was in natural wood, so this will look quite authentic. Then you've got more walnut, 2mm CNC cut sheet. Then you've got a 3mm walnut CNC cut sheet. And you'll see the difference in a minute. We'll compare this to some of the fly parts, so you can see the difference. 4mm walnut sheet. So we've got mass parts, the false keel and bow there, the rudder. Then we've got 5mm ply, so these make up the ribs and a building jig, which you can then turn into a display base if you wish. And then more for 5mm ply, which has got false deck. Those two parts will make up the stand. And then you have a parts list. So it tells you what every part is. So you've got a number there, so 26. If we find 26, building cradle beams. If we find part 20, dummy gun barrel blockers. So you know what all the parts are because it lists them, it tells you the thickness of the material, and it tells you how many you get. So you go through the kit, you check everything off, you've got the contact details on the front if you've got an issue. And we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 pages there of parts list. Now, not everything listed is wood, so it's telling you here, if we go through this, you've got 5mm ply, then you've got more ply, then you've got the walnut listed out, then you've got brass, castings, and this will be strip and dowel because it's giving you dimensions. So, there you go, that's your instruction manual. Now, to go with the instruction manual, you have 8 sheets of plans. So let's have a look at those. So you're going to have to bear with me with the plans because, well, they're a little bit big for the model desk. This first sheet is 112 centimetres tall, or just over 44 inches. So it's a huge sheet. And what we have on sheet 1, if I take you up to the top left corner, it will tell you exactly what it is. So sheet 1 of 8, hull profiles. Okay, and there we have a little picture of what is left of the Mary Rose, and actually what you'll see in the museum now if you go. So it has all sorts of little bits of information on here to do with stage 1 planking. It's telling you to drill out and file the gun ports once they're completed, showing you the position of the first plank, something Caldercraft always do, and that then helps you with making sure you lay the rest of the planks in the right place. It's telling you where to drill some holes. Then we're on the second planking, and this all relates to what's in the instructions, so it's not difficult to follow, even if it looks a bit complex at this stage, it really isn't. And then stage 3, completion of the outer hull detail. So there we've got those rubbing strips there, we've got the wales just under the bottom of the gun ports, and the rudder there. So quite a lot of detail, including there's quite a bit. If just closing, there's quite a bit of clinker to be done, which has a nice effect when it's done, but is a little time consuming to lay it nice and properly and get it straight. And you can see there the sort of the wishbone effect on the transom there, so very nice. So that is sheet 2 of 8 hull section drawings, and you can see there it's got details of some of the fittings. The deck has like a walkway through the centre, so you can see the deck below, and famously that was covered in nets, which was to stop people boarding the Mary Rose, but also trapped most of the crew in who perished when she sank. But yeah, you can see here the deck layout. It's referencing other drawings, so drawing 1, drawing I, drawing J, drawing E, and then you've got cross sectionals there, so you can see exactly how the construction should be. Construction there is quite complex because these were movable panels to allow for the arches. You've got the gunport lid construction, showing you where the holes are for the hinges, the hole for the rope that opens it, and you can see the deck there in profile with the ladder and the frame reference numbers. So it gives you every possible angle. It's nice and clear. They're big drawings to scale, so you understand exactly what you're doing. Really, really nice. So these drawings are all to scale, so you can put your parts on there and just fit them and just make sure that you've got everything correct. So sheet 3 of 8 deals with masts and yards, and again these are all to scale, so you can put your yards on and scale them up. And I'm going to give you an idea of how big some of these are. There's my hand. So they're a decent size, so should be easy enough to get to grips with. It lists out the rigging threads there. It lists out the blocks and gives them a letter. So 5mm triangular deadeye is a G, and so when they reference them on the pictures there, you can know exactly what you're doing. You know exactly what thread you're using. You're using B, which is the 0.75mm black hemp, and it's going on to block H, which is a 3mm single sheave block. So it's easy to follow. You've got construction drawings to show you how the crow's nests are put together. Where to do the bindings on the masts. So you can actually lay your mast on here and mark off the positions of the bindings. Shows you there how to thread the parallel ribs so that the masts can rotate, or the yards can rotate and swing and move as you need them to. So it's all very clear, it's all sectional, so you know exactly what you need to be doing. And of course you've got instructions telling you what you need to do. Quite often what Caldercraft will do is have you drill a hole in the centre and put some brass rod down it to make the mast joints nice and strong. Yeah, very nice. Very nice. Some tips there on how to shape the mast. If you've not got a lathe, how to go about rounding it off. Sheet 4 of 8 concentrates on shrouds and ratlines, and we have a lot of shrouds on the Mary Rose. She's got 4 masts, as you can see, but the main mast there has a lot of shrouds. So there's quite a bit of work to do here, getting the ratlines straight and so on. Can be a bit tricky, probably the trickiest part of building a wooden ship, I would think. But it does show you here how to thread the deadeyes, the lanyard sequence, how to tie them off, how to do the clove hitch knot to tie them off to the shrouds, which is the traditional way of doing it, the figure of 8 pass through, which allows you to keep going and connect them rather than doing individual knots. Yeah, it shows you where the brass wire needs to go, which acts as a spacer to keep them all in the right position. The order of the shrouds, so which side goes on which side, so that's all correct and historically accurate. So nice clear drawing there. And again references the rigging threads and blocks as before. Sheet 5 of 8 deals with the mast stays. So we have an overhead view of the deck, and we can see all the positioning numbers there. Once again, it's listing out the blocks and the threads. There is a blown up diagram there as needed, and then you can see we have all of this rigging shown in detail, where to loop it, where to put the blocks, what thread to be using, and where it all attaches on the decks. Now, sheet 6 of 8 deals with the running rigging. It says running rigging 1, so we know there's more than one sheet. And this is dealing with the rigging as shown. So most of it is coming off the yards. It's to manipulate the yards to allow you to catch the wind and operate the ship. Once again, we have rigging thread and blocks listed, and much of this will be in the natural colour because running rigging was natural. Usually in a model ship kit, the black represents tarred and the natural represents untarred. But it shows you quite clearly where everything needs to be. Sheet 7 continues with the running rigging, and as you can see there, we're dealing with the bowsprit as well as the foremasts, and it blows up the lateen yard lifts there. So these were particular ways of lifting the top of the yards. Quite a pretty bit of rigging. Now, Caldercraft never supply you with sails, so you'll see all of this rigging nice and clearly. It won't be hidden. But yeah, another nice simple diagram. So finally, the 8th sheet contains what they call supplementary drawings. So these drawings are referenced at different stages in the build. So we've got right at the start there, we've got the keel and false keel, the ribs and false deck, more false deck, hatches, more hatches. You've got a drawing there of the anchor. You've got the different types of cannons being built up, showing you how that's done, and assembly of the ladder. So yeah, some detailed drawings as and when you need them. So we're going to have a look at the wood parts that come in the kit first. And I just wanted to show you how Caldercraft go about this and why it's different to other wooden ship manufacturers. So this first sheet out here has the false keel on, and which has the location points for the ribs. Now I've removed this because I want to show you something in a sec. But what you can see here is that all these gaps look quite full, and actually they are. They're full of sawdust, and it's basically come from the process of CNCing these parts. So rather than laser cutting like most people do, they CNC, so they have a little router that goes in and cuts along. Now, as you'll see in a minute, that has some other advantages to what I'm about to show you. The advantage to it being CNC cut is you get a much cleaner finish on the part when you remove it. So if I just show you, that is nice, perfectly straight. You don't need to do anything with it. It doesn't need any cleanup other than where you've removed it, where the tabs were. So the tabs generally tend to be a bit thicker, so 3 to 4 millimeters maybe, the tab. There's one just there. But yeah, that is effectively lifted straight out of there, doesn't need any cleanup. Now, most wooden kits will tell you that they're using laser for precision, but what you actually get with laser, and this is the stand from HMS Fly, is firstly, you get all this laser charring. So if you're building and want to show the wood surfaces, you've got to clean up all of those surfaces. Secondly, it's quite rough. There's lots and lots of little lines in it that have come from the laser. So you've got to smooth that out as well. So it's a lot more work actually. And it's no more precise than CNC cut. The disadvantage of CNC cut is the sawdust. And typically the first thing that I'll do when I start a Caldercraft kit is give all of these sheets a hoover, and then get in there with a cocktail stick and loosen it all and suck and hoover it all out. Take everything out of the box, hoover the box, and then we put it all back in. That's generally how I go about things. But there are loads of advantages to the CNC. I think it's easier to work with, it's quicker, it's no less precise, and as you'll see in a moment, it gives you some other advantages as well. So this is the first sheet, and as you can see, the parts are well spaced out. You just need to number them up so you know what you're doing, and you've got plenty of spare material there should you need it. So we have a number of sheets of this 5mm ply. And the ply generally is in areas where it's going to be covered up and won't be seen. And as you can see just there, that's where your connection point is. But because the CNCing process leaves you with a much wider gap than laser cut, you can easily get in there with a saw rather than having to break the tabs with a knife, which can be a bit problematic sometimes. So we've got a sheet there which has also got some deck beams on. Then we've got another sheet with more ribs on and more deck beams, and you can see here we've got some that are going to shape the stern area there. And then on this next sheet we've got also they call it a building jig. Basically, once you've got your ship starting to be planked, you can place it on there and it gives you something to stand it on. But there's nothing preventing you from turning that into a nice little display stand as well. You can, it's got a couple of supports, but what you can actually do is you can shape this and make it look a little bit more elegant, move the supports to a different location, or replace the supports with some brass rod or whatever. You've got all sorts of options here because you know this fits perfectly to the hull shape. So it's a nice way of doing it, and if you paint it up and put a bit of felt on it, it can look really special. Saves you having to go out and buy an expensive stand. Okay, so there we go. That's some of the 5mm ply pieces. And the last of the 5mm ply has this false deck, and that's a good strong thick deck. These little parts here fit into those, and then that is for the display stand, and it gives you a good rigid structure right from the start. So now we've got the thinner ply sheet, and again it's all nicely spaced out, and wherever you've got ply on a Caldercraft kit, you know you're not going to see the laminations, that you won't see the edges because they're hidden behind something or attached to something. So we've got the grill there that goes at the bow, and we've got some of the structures there for the castle, I think, and a much thinner false deck, but that's all you need. Once you've got the frame in, this will sit on some ribs. It'll be perfectly rigid once you've you've nailed it in, and then you give it a layer of plank in, and it'll be a good solid foundation. And again, it's all CNC cut. These are obviously easier to remove. Each one of these is just held in by one tab, but nicely spaced out, and lots of spare material should you need it. So this is the last one of the thin ply sheets, and you can see we've got more deck area there, and some of these beautiful openings and decorations there that go around the edges of the top of the ship, and all of this will get some planking on top of it as well, so looks really nice. Some challenging, if we've got a plank over that and cut those out, that'll be challenging, but I think actually what we're going to have is little struts that go between them and divide them up, and this is in the background, and under varnish will look spectacular. But yeah, all very nicely done. Then we're on to the walnut sheets, and we've got also a whole array of parts here, but you can easily divide them up. So roughly from this here is dealing with the spotting tops, or crow's nests if you like. Now I have to say these do look different to the ones I've seen in the Mary Rose Museum. The shape and structure is exactly the same, but they leave gaps in between each one of these little ribs. And the one that's in the museum, which was actually a spare one, which was in the hold, which is why it was preserved and not removed with the rest of the masts, is actually fully planked all the way around. So it'd be interesting to see if that's what they do when you read the instructions. But this is all spotting tops, and then here we've got what must be some part of the upper structures, but these are all the trucks and the cradles for some cannon. We can see different types of carriages there, and then as we move along we've got various bits for the openings in the deck, and some of the hull construction there. We've got a little archway, probably a door I would imagine. So all very nice, and this gets a lovely deep rich colour when you put it under varnish as well. So all the sheets now are walnut and solid, and they're all still CNC'd, of course. There's no laser at all in this kit. So we've got some knees and various other bits and pieces. I'm not quite sure what all of them are, but I think some of these are gunport openings and hatches, and actually if we flip it over we can see the advantage of CNC. So I'll show you on another piece in a minute because it's absolutely gorgeous, but what you can do, because it's CNC and at a certain thickness, they can actually do different levels. So here you can see they've CNC'd around the edge, which is going to allow you to fit other parts to it more easily. So that's nice. We can see here we've got the ladder edges. They've all been CNC'd out so that you can put various different, well, you'll cut some strip to length and put those in. But yeah, you can see that's the other advantage of CNC, and on the next piece you'll see it even more clearly. So this one holds the base for the cannons, or some of the cannons, and you can see here you've got the shape piece, and then they've nicely CNC'd out these rebates here so that you can mount the cannons in, and they look just like the ones that you see in the museum. They do look really, really special. Very nice, and again these will darken up and look absolutely beautiful under varnish. So lastly we have these two parts here, which are for holding it's the join points for the masts essentially. It's a bit broken actually. And then we've got on this one, we've got the bow, we've got the rudder, which is a single piece, so you might want to do some work to make it look like planks of wood or something like that. We've got some bits there which have got
the holes pre-drilled, which is nice. You wouldn't get that on laser cut, but they can do that on CNC. So all very nice. So that's all the CNC parts, but we've still got a huge amount of timber in the kit to go through. So we have these bundles. And they're bundled basically in their type. So this is all the same thickness of material, and it's walnut. And this is likely to be, it doesn't say, it's unlike a matty that put a little label on, it doesn't say, but this is likely to be the second planking for the hull. So quite a lot of that. Then we have this huge bundle of bigger strip. Now this is likely to be the first planking. So I'm going to guess that's 5mm by 2mm. So this is really good to work with for your first planking, easy to shape. So yeah, really nice. And lots of it. There will be some spare in there, and it's, you know, 1/2 metre long, so there's plenty of material. Now this strip will be it's not the same material. If you look at it, you can see it's a slightly different shade, and I just want to show you this. Now this is typically used for deck planking because this is Tanganyika material, whereas this is lime. So the Tanganyika has this sort of slightly yellowed hue to it, and is used more and more in wooden kits for decking because it has a nice finish to it. So we have quite a decent bundle of that material, which is a bit thicker than is often used for deck planking, so that's good. You've got plenty of material there for sanding flat, so that's always helpful. And we have another huge bundle of walnut. Again, this is all the same size, but look how much you've got. So this will be for doing all of that shiplap and various other decorations on the ship. So lots and lots of walnut. It's going to look absolutely splendid when it's finished. This last bundle of walnut is an assortment of different strip. So you've got all sorts of different sizes in there. Lots of square, 2x2, so on and so forth. So yeah, all very nice. Good quality as always from Caldercraft, and easy to work with, and you usually have a reasonable amount of spare material in there. Then we have a bundle of rod. Now they never tell you what the material is on the rod. I assume it's lime because it's cheaper than box. Feels like lime. And there is also a brass rod in there, which is quite heavily tarnished now. I've had this kit for a little while. But yeah, this is going to obviously do all your masts and yards. So there's not a huge amount there, but clearly enough to do what we need to do. Next we have a bag with the rigging threads in. And my initial thought when I saw it was, oh, there might not be enough there, but actually they're wound quite thick, so there's more thread there than it possibly looks like. So we've got the running rigging and the standard rigging there, plenty of different sizes, so that should all look nice. Caldercraft thread is always really good quality. It's not very furry, but we wax it anyway. Photo etch, and there's only a small amount of photo etch. This is it. It's not like fly that has lots and lots of it. So most of this is for folding around the masts to hold the beads together, and then some of it will be for gun ports, and some of it will be for the rudder mounting. So that will go on the rudder there. You'll need to form and shape it, and then these will go on the rear of the ship, on the stern there, and these will connect into it. So that's the only photo etch used in there. But again, it's all brass, so if you want to varnish it rather than paint it black, then you've got that option, and that'll look quite nice on the kit. So next we have all the little castings and fittings, and Caldercraft always put that in a bubble bag. So there's quite a bit of stuff to go through here. Let's have a look what we've got. So we have a bag with the anchors in. So we've got 2 white metal anchors and already CNC cut and removed anchor tops. So the stocks there are all ready to go, pre-shaped, just need a little tidy up. We've got more thread, which is probably for the anchor ropes, I would imagine. Then we've got our white metal cannons. So we've got this long type, which was typical of what you saw on the lower decks, and they go into those long CNC cannon bases that we saw. And then we've got this bag which has got more cannons in of different sizes, and we saw that there was different weights on different decks, but actually there was a real mix on the Mary Rose, because there isn't one foundry making these cannons, so they're cannons that they've captured on battlefields and all sorts on there. So yeah, a whole mix of different cannons, but these all look quite nice. You know, they're rifled out, and a little bit of care to sand them up and they will look lovely. Let's see, stick with cannons for a sec. So we've got the little swivel cannon here. I've noticed that one's bent, but it's not a biggie. 1 or 2 of these are bent actually, they're quite delicate. But you've got the swivel cannons there, which obviously you paint up black, and will be mounted along the bulwarks on the top of the ship and in the castle and what have you. So, and the casting is nice and crisp, it's really good. Then we've got another bag with white metal parts in, and these have got cleats in and tie-off points in the main. And there appears to be 1 copper eye in there. I'm sure that's rogue. There's a bag full of copper eyes. Well, there's no way that one's got in because they're heat sealed bags. So yeah, so those will go in the decks for tying off the threads, and again you'd paint those black. It's a small bag of brass nails, and these have all got flat heads. So you get 2 different types. You get dome head and flat head. The flat head look really nice. If you're going to hammer them into the hull, natural wood, and leave them in, the flat heads look really nice. So yeah, good quality brass nails, which we won't mix with our general box of brass nails, so they're good. Let's see, I've got another anchor here in white metal, and that's really nice. That there's no flash on it. You can barely see the seam. Very nicely done. Then we've got some chain, quite a bit of chain actually. So I'd imagine some of that chain will be linked onto the rudder. What the other bits of chain are for, I don't know. I'm sure it'll become clear. But yeah, quite a bit of chain there, which appears to be brass. Parabol beads. Yeah, not much you can say about these. They're all fairly standard. You just have to be a bit careful because the thickness can vary a little bit. Doesn't look like we've got too many there, so you don't want to be losing them on the floor really. And then that gets us to the wooden blocks. So here we've got, in this bag, we've got a couple of really nice violin blocks and some other sort of reasonably large blocks. So that's your violin block there. You can see the shape of it. Looks like an 8 or a violin indeed. And they are so beautifully done. Then we've got dead eyes. They all appear to be the same size. Colours are lovely, so they're not going to stand out. They're going to look natural on the ship. Then we've got lots of these triangular ones, and we certainly saw plenty of those in the museum. So was commonly used block on the Mary Rose, and again the colour is lovely on them. Patina will be nice as well. Then we've got large standard blocks. These are singles. And then we've got smaller single blocks as well. So really, in terms of blocks, you've got singles, large and small. You've got the dead eyes, you've got these triangular blocks, and you've only got these small blocks, which are multiples, doubles, and the violin blocks, which are probably for the anchors. Have got 3. I'd imagine the violin blocks are for the anchors. And that is the parts done. So there we have it. Caldercraft's Mary Rose kit. What's my first impression? The instructions are always very, very clear, step by step, easy to follow, and the plans that go with it are a decent size, so you're not struggling. Some plans you have lots and lots of small drawings all mixed up together, and you've got to work through it, and it can be quite time consuming and difficult to spot what you're looking for. The layout of Caldercraft's plans are really nice and easy to follow, as are the instructions, and you get a huge amount of history as well. The fact that you can register it and get any updates is fantastic, and the subject matter, as you can plainly see, is fantastic and a very, very famous ship, one of the big 3 at Portsmouth. Material quality is really good. I like the fact that they CNC rather than laser. You get a better finish, slightly quicker build, less cleanup. But the downside is obviously you've got quite a bit of sawdust that you've got to work through initially. I think the instructions are not overly complicated, but maybe they've said this as an intermediate, so they expect you to have a certain amount of knowledge, as in you've done it before. Having said that, they're still showing you how to tie knots on the shrouds. So yeah, I think it's about right as an intermediate. Good balance. Generally find Caldercraft instructions and plans are easier to follow than anybody else's. In terms of what you get for your money, this is retailing these days at about £310 in the UK. What you get for your money, you get tons. You get tons of quality timber, which all goes together in a very well designed kit. And as they've said themselves, it's the most historically accurate Tudor ship you can buy. So yeah, I mean, for me, if you're going to build a wooden model ship and you're only ever going to build one wooden model ship, make sure it's a Caldercraft one, because they do it so well. And maybe this is the one you want to build, the Mary Rose, the flower of all ships. I hope that was interesting, helps you understand what you get for your money in this kit. It's a lot of kit, but it will come together beautifully and look spectacular when you've finished. Thanks for looking in, everyone. Take care, and I will see you soon.